Hello, everyone. I am not Mr. Drysdale. This is not my good friend Jed Clampett and his nephew Jethro. We are three black frat grads, and this is in our 102nd episode. We're going to be talking about basically what happens when you study another photographer. At Pratt, that's one of the things we had to do, study other photographers. And what do we learn from that experience? So each of us is going to present one image. We're going to talk about what we have learned from that experience. The first one that's going to speak tonight is going to be Ken. Ken?
Okay, it's well,
It got
I,
progressively worse.
yeah. Well, no, that's fine. The intro is fine. It's just that me and my talk about the image that I'm going to bring up, and it's all about. It's funny because, of course, in school you're taught to critique a work, and so for me, critiquing doesn't necessarily connote a positive response, but what could have been done better. That which you have control over, what could have been done better in street photography, I don't know if anything could have been done better. So I'm just going to say I've learned that to take it all in, see what other photographers do, make sure as I go out and photograph that I do not copy them. Hey, do not copy them as much as possible. Do your own thing. Because I tell you, if you look at, let's take, if you guys out there, folks out there listening, look at Instagram. If you use Instagram as your resource for how to take photographs, uh, and if you just study maybe 10 specific photographers, it will be a bowl of confusion to try and emulate all 10. It will probably be better if you emulate one, but that means that you'd have to be photographing the same genre or be in the same area to get something that's similar to who you want to emulate. That being said, this particular image here is to me not an emulation of anything or anyone I've ever known, but it's probably a combination of everyone I've ever seen. And I guess that's a good thing. You know?
Well said, Mr. Nelson. Boy, that was a good one.
So I'll just leave it
Slap
at
that
that,
one on
right?
a t-shirt. I'd buy that.
And
Well, I mean, I guess really what I'm getting at is, but who has inspired you enough to present this image as an example of one that's been a sort of a compilation of, not all of that you've learned, but the specific photographers that have influenced how you photograph.
interestingly enough, I cannot boil it down to one because those that are in the forefront of the genre of street photography, I prefer never to emulate. Although they are the grandfathers and fathers of the genre, I don't
Right.
necessarily think that they are ones to emulate or to look forward to because I see faults in everything they do.
Ooh.
So what I
Okay.
want to do is I want to see the way I want to see
Can,
and
can you can you go ahead?
present images the way I would like to present them, whether they are a very busy image such as this is, which is you trying to figure out because one of the things that they tell you is make sure you have a center of attention or something that grabs. In this particular instance, you sort of do, but you don't, and that's okay for me. If your eye travels around or if it doesn't really matter. But the overall image will most likely
Absolutely.
have an impact. So
Well, I
that's my
think the gentleman
spiel.
in the middle really shows. I think the gentleman in the middle really is the focal point of
Anchor.
this
He anchors
photograph.
it.
From and then he has words on his chest. He has vertical clothing. He's got a lot of contrast there. He's seemingly older than many of the other people. So there's a lot to differentiate him from the other individuals, at least initially,
Yes.
from the photograph. And then as you your eye walks around the photograph, you see similarities. Maybe he's the same age as the gentleman behind him on the right side. Maybe he's the same age as the gentleman on the left side behind him with the mustache. I don't know. But what we do get a sense of, at least I get a sense of, is that in this photograph, I mean, there's certain tonalities that are specific to a type of street photography that's done. And it's also very much about viewing people in a certain way.
Yeah, or gesture and moments combining in one to create something that I would
It's
find
gesture
interesting.
moment, but like
wanna
the
know,
photographer, this individual is sort of standing in the middle of this storm, very much in his own thought.
Yes, yes,
It seems like others are pretty much, engaged in activity,
yes.
and they're really trying to sort of enjoy themselves in a quiet place. Just in a moment, he's there, he's arrived, but it seems like he's sort of caught in between what he wants to do and where he is.
Okay.
Well, it seems he's like the old dude in this young crowd. You know, he kind of seems frozen in the moment. To me, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I-
that's what
I can only assume that he was daydreaming at that moment.
uh,
And so that's all I'm going to sort of suggest at this point. But
I mean,
because
he's like the only gray-haired in the bunch. Everybody else seems to be enjoying the moment, and he's like kind of, in a way, he's kind of isolated. Just about everybody in the image is looking in a different direction than he is.
yeah. Hmm.
I'm just saying. I
And
mean,
and
it is
for the
what it
most
is.
part,
But
yeah, and he's framed for the most part. He's framed. You sort of get this idea that he is framed by these. There's something about there are two bicycles and the flags seem to frame him. They seem to come up on both
Mhm.
sides of his body to sort of create a frame along with the tonalities that Mark was mentioning. So
Yeah.
yes,
there's
but
a
again,
triangle that leads right to him.
I would imagine he's viewing something that's a little bit off this frame, or he's just checking out one of the other bikes that's parked there. That's maybe off screen.
yes. Yeah.
Still a
So
cool
you have
shot.
all these things that you're thinking about as you're looking at this, and that's great.
I
Whatever
want to
your
know
thoughts-
which.
So who would you say?
I-
Who would you say influenced you most in trying? And then there are other photographers that we've known.
It's funny
history
because
that
it's
have covered similar areas. Like what?
it's someone who's not even in the genre of street photography, to be honest with you, Louis Hine. Right? If I were to say that Louis Hine influenced me to a great degree, and I would say that even Eugenia J influenced me a great deal, and yet, neither one photographed in this way. Now, they're both photographers. Sorry, Eugenia J is from the late 1800s, early 1900s, and Louis Hine is about later, a little bit later on, 19.
Aren't his pictures seem like really constructed? They seem very solid. Louis Hine, if I'm thinking of the right person.
Yeah, child labor and things of that nature,
Hmm.
children and causes like that. So yeah. So and again, trying to make the connection between those two photographers in this image it's useless because it's
stretch.
all
Yeah.
right, because it's all within my head.
I want to know which photographers, which vanguard photographers you thought that you could see mistakes or things that you really didn't like in their work. I want you to drop some names.
Well, all I'm going to say is that I think a lot of the photographers who are photographing now who are street are emulating that look or those looks, and to see tens of maybe hundreds of photographers shooting in the same vein, and I'll give you a description. We all are told to photograph a specific moment, right? And for me, this is a specific moment.
Yeah,
But
okay.
what seems to be happening is that these other photographers are photographing the in-between moments that are less appreciative or that I don't see it. They're the in between moments. They
That's
don't have
interesting.
the
They don't
energy.
have a.
You know,
So there is a decisive moment. Is that what you're saying,
I'm not well. Yes,
Mr.
well,
Bresson?
I would say that there is a moment of heightened information that may help an image, but there are many more moments that don't.
True,
Yeah.
right. But picking the right moment to release that shutter is the moment.
Well, no, because I'm not
No,
restricting it
but
to no, because I'm not restricting it to one moment. I'm
okay,
restricting
so
it. It could be a few moments
okay,
within
true,
a span of time.
true. But
Right?
you said there were moments with heightened expression,
Yes.
and then there were moments in between.
Yes.
So that's like kind of like a sine wave. You know, there's the peak, and then there's the not
Yes.
peak.
Yes.
You know,
Depending on how
and peak
fast.
moments. The peak
Yeah.
moments are where it's happening, or where
The
the
peak.
energy kind of the image kind of pops more than the images in between.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
But and again, remember that's subject to interpretation of the viewer as well. So
Of course, of course,
okay,
of course.
so yeah. So there's a
But
lot
I
there.
just, yes, I agree. I really, really enjoy this image. That's the Puerto Rican Day Parade on 5th.
It is close. It's the day before. It's the 116th Street Festival, which always precedes the Puerto Rican Day, the National Puerto Rican Day Parade.
Okay.
This event usually falls on a Saturday, where the parade falls on a Sunday, right after this.
Okay. Yeah, that's one thing I do miss about New York. I mean, there's a lot going on at the Capitol up north, but in New York, man, there was a guy on TikTok this morning. I was just, they caught my eye, and he was like, "Look, world, I want you to stop clumping New Yorkers all into one group. Brooklyn people are different than Bronx people. Queens people are different than Manhattan people." I just enjoyed that, but yeah, I enjoyed that shot, Ken. That's all I got.
Thank you. That's all for me, Mark.
Okay. The next person who will present will be me. Okay.
And you're not Mr. Clampett, or who did you say you were?
Mr. Drysdale.
Who was the banker? Oh, right, banker. Okay. For those of you who missed the reference completely, that was
Here
like
we go.
the Beverly Hillbillies, I think. But go ahead, Mark. I digress. You shot that, Skinner? Did we
Mark,
lose him?
we may have lost Mark.
Okay, let's talk bad about him. I wish he'd get a haircut.
No. Yeah, I mean, worst comes
All right,
to, let's go to you, Greg.
all right, come on.
Go ahead.
Pastiche, one of my favorite topics. But there's a lot going on. I highly recommend. I thought that exercise we did at Pratt, shooting they call it pastiche, or in the style of another artist. I thought it was a good exercise because, like, my favorite, one of my favorites is Cartier-Bresson. He talked about the decisive moment, and that one shot, of course, that. Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Famous shot.
Want to try again?
He's back.
We skipped you.
We're gonna come back to you, Mark.
Yeah.
That one picture of the man with the umbrella jumping over the puddle.
Yeah.
What was that? Are we in a submarine? Sounds like we're in a submarine. Okay. All right, on 3. We all live in a yellow submarine. Anyway, that caught me. That
One second.
shot, although it looks effortless.
Hold on for a
sounds like we're in
second, Greg.
submarine. Okay.
There's wherever this noise is coming from, it's interfering with your volume. Mark, is that you or is that Greg?
I've got nothing on.
Greg, Mark?
No, that's a computer making. That was a screen.
No, there's a consistent hum.
Yeah, I hear it. Sounds like water. That's
okay.
there he is.
Okay, that was Mark.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
He
finally
just
back.
joined.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, guys.
Mhm.
So anyway, really quickly with the photograph that I had posted, that Greg Ken posted on my behalf. Oh, we went off to Greg. All right, Greg.
Yeah, we'll come back to you, Mark.
I was just
That's
saying,
all right.
like what you just said, Ken. There is a moment, and you learn that as you keep shooting, photographers will be able to either visually sense when the moment is going to happen and capture it, or capture several moments, and then in post you can look and say, okay, that shot is better than that one because XYZ. That's what that exercise that Kraft taught me about the shooting and the style of another photography. But I also like what you said, Ken, about learning all of that and saying, yeah, the pictures all don't look like them because I make an effort not to. Because if my images look like other, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Because especially with street photography, every moment is different. You're almost always trying to play catch up because like the event is happening, especially in New York. You're walking down the street. I remember there was a shot that I chased, and this woman probably thought I was the weirdest weirdo, but she had on this like a striped, black and white striped dress, and it caught my eye as she was passing through an intersection where all the lines on the street are just black and white striped.
Uh-huh.
I chased her for about 3 blocks, trying to wait for her to get into the intersection so I could get her crossing the street and with her dress mimicking the lines on the crosswalk. But I got a couple of shots, but they weren't the shots I want. So when you say there's shots at the apex of all of the things, like you said, it didn't have the design construct, but it did because it had a dominant, subdominant, tertiary, and then like there was a unspoken visual line to the guy in the center. But you can get a shot and make the connection and say, yeah, well, these lines on the street mimic her lines in her dress, but when all of the magic lines up and you got the person and the spot, they had a striped bag, or who's that photographer who shot the woman standing with boots and then this tiny little dog and then just the legs of a Great Dane?
Elliot Irwin.
Thank you. Stuff like that where it's like A, B, C, everything lines up. Then it's like magic. And that's what I got out of that exercise.
Greg, I have to ask you, why don't you show these photos? You talk about a lot of great photos.
What?
Photographs.
Oh, well,
Never
that's not true. But I just thought about that image. And again, I am in the process
conversation
of.
to you. I
Do you
did
want?
this great
I
photo.
can look
and then
for it now.
No, you couldn't, but I would say that for the pleasure of audiences who are listening, your
Okay, I
description
will.
is
Yes.
very sophisticated, and for
Okay.
them to grasp that description, I think is quite difficult.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, but that was something that
But
just came to
the
me
question
while
I
we were
have,
through the discussion.
Uh-huh.
So I will look that
well,
up and I
question
will.
I have, I guess I missed it. Who were your influences for this particular photo?
It was just kind of like a breakout thing. This was like my rebellious image, because it was interesting that Ken said kind of what I was thinking slash feeling, in that, yeah, it's one thing to shoot in the style of another photographer, but I feel that I have to have my own visual look, like last episode's charge was to, how what image would you like folks to remember you as, not you in the style of another photographer, you have to have your own style and something that folks would look at and say, "Oh, that reminds me of a Marcus Kennedy, or that reminds me of Ken Nelson, the way he captured stuff." Oh, and congratulations on getting your pictures posted in Missouri for that was for the stock, Ken?
That is just the image licensing.
Licensing? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, but congratulations for them using, some of your images to, to draw,
Yeah.
for the look.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, this is just kind of like a rebellious breakout. Enough is enough. I mean, you can always say, in art speak, if you don't connect your work to a well-known photographer who you're making a reference to visually, then you're not in the art world, you know. And sometimes it's like, so what? Give me a break. Let me get out. So I did. I saw that in the images. I really enjoying this topic, because it brought up. Well, I'm enjoying the comments more so. Ken, you're saying that yes, all the influence are there. They're in the Rolodex, but I'm not consciously trying to shoot like so and so
Yeah.
because I'm me, and so you're living your best life, as folks like to say, now, and you're shooting your best work, and that's awesome. So this image didn't really, remind me of anyone as much as it was me saying, I can't be put into a box. I don't want to be put into a box. If somebody sees an image that looks like someone else's, great. If not, cool.
Yeah.
But in my body of work, I want my work to, to speak to me. That's all I got. Because I've been waiting all day for Sunday night. Did I lose you? Kenny, did you freeze?
I think what you're saying is very valid. It's a very valid way of looking at it. So I was just hoping to get from this particular image a sense of who kind of, if you were conscious of anyone who specifically inspired you. If not, that's fine.
No one in particular.
Right.
Did we lose Kenny?
Well, as if I were viewing as a viewer, I would say that almost any photographer in history that I've used words predominantly in their photographs, and I forgot the woman's name from the 70s, late 80s, I think, early 90s, who used words about feminine and feminine objectivity in her photographs. And I just forgot her name. Very well known. But I digress. I forget her name. But again, since these are words within the frame and the words are the predominant subject within the image, the relationship to previous photographers who's done the same thing is going to be almost automatic in that regard. But they won't be the same because they think that photographer used black and white mainly, and they posted their words over the image instead of being part of the image.
Right. Kind of like radiograms in that vein.
Well, in terms of words in a radiogram, no, but we don't need to go further with it.
Right. Well. Okay. In that, sense, it was. This was part of the
poster.
He's breaking up real bad.
I'm sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
In that vein, this was. I shot this at a Black Lives Matter / anti-gun rally. I think this was in DC. If you can see are those police officers off to the left of the screen? I can't really make that out. But this was part of the rally of her, gun violence, anti-gun violence, and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
So that was it. I like I really enjoyed what Ken said about street shooting, because you're you're trying to catch up to the moment, because there's a lot of moments happening all the time, and I enjoy that part of photography, of the hunt. If you're doing landscapes, you're waiting for the right time of day, or the right flower to grow between a rock or something. But when you start doing street photography and you're dealing with masses of people, you know, um, or the lack thereof in a place where there should be, like the shots you did during COVID, and Manhattan was vacated, and that was creepy to see, in the middle of the day. Um, Something apocalyptic, right out of a sci-fi movie. But yeah, I mean that, and like kids, I don't want to be cubbyhole. I mean, if it looks like you said, yeah, it's going to be reminiscent. If you know your art history and you know your photographic art history, a lot of this stuff is going to be reminiscent of um, somebody,
Right.
you know.
Okay.
But you have to, slice your own pie or your own window in the pie so that your vision is yours. So yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so I guess we double back to mine. There's a good chance in order to save some bandwidth, I might turn off the video feed. Let's go. All right, now this is a photograph that I did yesterday, and unlike you guys who feel that all the photographs that you do are specific to you only, in this case, for this prompt, I was making a point to sort of copy the type of work that I've seen from a couple of other photographers. This isn't usually the genre I work in. I work in portraits primarily, and sometimes tabletop commercial work and events. So street photography, although I'm familiar with it, isn't really my genre. But when I do street photography, rather than photographing a lot of individuals, which is perfectly valid, I try to sort of bring this back to the shapes that I would see in a commercial venue. In this case, I was really trying to sort of, quite honestly, make a copy of a sort of a living photographer, someone who inspires a lot of people now, and it's Ralph Gibson. I think one of the big differences would be that he almost always shoots in a vertical fashion rather than horizontal. I'm trying to get some of the tonalities that he uses, a lot of the contrast, sort of attention to shape. And then there's an old photographer who did a lot of experiments with color photography and sculptural
You're not
shapes for his
old, Mark.
commercial work.
Mark, you're not old, Mark.
Not so much the nudes he did later. I'm sorry, what was that?
You're not old, Mark.
Paul Outerbridge.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said you're not old.
Well, what's his name? Paul Outerbridge influenced me quite a bit, and also Charles Duluth. I always talk about. So
We're
the
losing you.
architectural line. I'm sorry, the architectural lines of delineation that's in another painter, and also the architectural sculptural work of Paul Outerbridge, and a little bit of the tonality of Ralph Gibson have all sort of been fused for me in this image. And this is, I just created this specifically for this talk. This wasn't something that I wanted to do with just myself in mind. But I think copying other photographers is a very good exercise, because quite honestly, you are always, as Greg, in someplace different. So no matter what you do, when you copy someone else, it will be different. You won't be in the same place, and you won't be in the same time. So it's important to be able to try to copy other people and ingest some of the thinking process that you get from that exercise. That's it.
I got objections. And this like lines up again with what Ken said and what I was trying to reiterate It's like no matter where you go, there you are. You know, two great actors could play the same character and come with, you know, completely different interpretations of the presentation. Now,
That's exactly
for
what
me, this image is one of your more. I'm trying to give you a compliment here, Skinner. Anyway, this is kind of one of the more interesting visual images that you've shown throughout these episodes. And to say that you just shot it recently is even more stunning because it's jarring visually. You know, it looks like a post earthquake. You know, because the foreground is up above. It's hard concrete with these metal spikes leading you into like a fence and a gutter and a car that looks like it's been smashed or it's gonna be smashed. It's in the dark, but it's got light reflected to it. This is a very visually interesting image. I mean, I'm not even going to get into the
Yes.
psychology of it, but I'm saying when you shoot like somebody else. Now you may have been thinking of Gibson and all these other photographers and their tonality and such, but when you take a picture, you are shooting you. You know, you always show, not you
Exactly. That's
personally,
exactly
but the
my point.
photographer always comes through the image because it's what they're seeing and why they chose to see that,
Yep.
which is very interesting. In this image, I thought you were just going to use this as an example because it's striking. I really like it.
Thank you. And that's exactly my point. Is that no matter how hard you try to copy someone,
It's
certainly in
disturbing
street
but
photography,
striking. Yeah.
right? Well, you know, the idea
Is
that
that a
it's
flash now?
haunting, it's nightmarish, but it's broad
Flash.
daylight. There's a cliff on the left side. You know, there's, you know, as you mentioned, there's a, a car and it looks like it's about to smash right into the spikes, but there's already debris on the concrete. You know, there's a lot going on. But at the same time, I know that there are certain photographers whose stylistically I tried to emulate, but I also tried to emulate a certain painter too. But I shot this specifically for this talk because I know one of the ways to become good at photography is to try to
Try to what? Hello? What do you say?
I don't know, Mark, can you say that again?
Ah,
Mm.
we lost them. All right, I think we're approaching time. This is a good episode. We should do this
Yeah.
again. I'll try to find that picture of the woman crossing the street.
Yeah. Yeah. And we apologize for the technical difficulties, you out there viewers, and we thank you for your patience and thank you for sticking around. We are the three Black Pratt grads. I'm Kenneth Nelson. Mark just left, and of course, Greg Claycorn. We will see you on our next episode. Thanks for staying with us.
Keep shooting.